Hi guys, my name is Cormate, and today I want to give you guys some commentary on a 25 Plaguefall that we tested last week with the affixes Bursting, Fortified, and Volcanic. So the first thing we usually do in this dungeon is we like to invis-pot all of this beginning trash. Most of the trash you get in here, you want to be using the Plague Boards as much as possible, because the dungeon, it's kind of similar to if you played last expansion, Siege of Borealis, where the dungeon mobs just kind of kill themselves if you set it up correctly. So you want to set that up as much as possible, pull all the trash and backpull a lot of trash with Plague Boards as much as you can. There are routes that even involve pulling less and killing less trash than what we do in this route. First of all is these slimes. You want to make sure that you purge all of these because they're doing a lot of damage, so you usually use the Blood Elf for that. And then right now I'm mostly prepping for all the burstings about to happen. So I popped my Earth Elemental, I popped the Sedence, I put down a Cloud Burst, I put up my wall, I put down a Spirit Link, and then I'm going to dispel either myself or I think I dispelled the Druid here. I definitely should have dispelled them earlier, but luckily we still live. Because 20 bursting stacks on everyone, and then the Monk diffused and the Mage ice blocked and all that good stuff, and then our tank was just able to live. That's a little bit of a scary part of this dungeon. For the most part, this dungeon as a healer is pretty dang chill. Like, a lot of it is just about like the mechanical part of the dungeon as far as just like setting up, like getting Plague Boards and things like that, than it is like you meeting healing checks and DPS checks and stuff like that. It's much more about like if you're just being like coordinated and practiced with how they pull these mobs and get it together. But yeah, once you practice the route a few times, this dungeon becomes one of the easiest dungeons for your group. So we just pull this Plague Belcher. You can, if you want, to run Earth Grab in this dungeon. It's really good for all these little slimes on these, and it's also good for the first boss. However, I choose not to. I choose to just go for the extra survivability from Ghost Wolf because we have like Ring of Frost, Ring of Peace, Mouse Root from the Druid and stuff like that, and they don't really have to give up like survivability for it, and also like it's just like having that much extra CC is kind of unnecessary. First thing you do, we cage one of the Plague Boards, and we're just going to single target down this Plague Board, and then once it's close, it's going to blow up around 30%. Then we're going to drag it into the other mobs. We want to make sure that it's low before we drag it in, otherwise we're just making your tank unnecessary damage, and there's no reason that every AoE should always just be targeting the Plague Boards. The only thing that's important here is you're going to see our Mage sometimes combusts the Plague Boards, but here he opted to instead, he's going to combust the Spine Breaker, because the Spine Breaker doesn't always die in like one Plague Board. Also, you saw here that our Windwalker died, he got meleeed, so I guess when our tank went in, he didn't get enough snap threat when he got in, and the Windwalker got all the aggro, and we're gonna end up having to battle res. And we take up all the battle res though, because we forget that this is CC'd over here, and we're like, oh, we're just gonna single target res him after we finish this, and we soak the slimes. When this guy spawns the slimes on a key this high, it's usually best just to let your tank go ahead and soak them all, because they're actually pretty spooky. And then now we're finally realizing, oh yeah, we're still in combat with this, we need to battle res him. Thankfully though, if someone dies here, it's not that huge of a deal. Because really, like I said, all the mobs basically just kill themselves. It's just about making sure you're taking the time to set up the pulls correctly and thinking about what you're pulling with what Plague Board and stuff like that, rather than how much DPS you're doing and stuff like that. So we're just going to DPS on this Plague Board. Next into this Plague Board, we're going to pull in this 3-pack in this Plague Rock. The Plague Rock can be really spooky for your tank as well. So that's something else that's similar to this Spine Breaker that you might want to look out for, and usually it doesn't die to just the one Plague Board. You could also be making use of these canisters, but I'm pretty sure these canisters, like, they don't scale up the same way that the Plague Boards do, so we don't utilize them nearly as often as all the other mobs. But you're gonna see that Plague Rock live for a while. You want to make sure that you're dodging the frontal from that Plague Rock. That Plague Rock has like, that frontal is really long and really deadly. And then also having a disease spell here really helps too with this, with all these mobs, really. Coming here as a shaman without like a priest or like a monk or anything like that kind of sucks. So next we're gonna go back and we're going to kill this guy, his spawn pride. There's a bunch of different ways to pull this. Some people will not pull his Plague Belcher at all, and they'll go and pull the red slime up, and then they'll use like the haste pool on this boss. Some people will actually just use Plague Boards to kill the boss itself. We decided just to go with a strat that like we're familiar with, because we saw all these other groups like using all this tech this week, but we didn't actually get too many of these keys this week, and we're just like, this is good enough to chest a 25 with I'm pretty sure we had like it wasn't that tight of a key, and we played it pretty dang safe. Yeah, the timer here is really free if you're just using the plague boars to kill everything, because the plague boars scale with the key level. Okay. So we're gonna kill this plague belcher, and then we are going to have a pride. I'm gonna skip ahead a tiny bit. So for this key, because like I said, like damage doesn't matter, everything's just killing itself. It's just about like being safe. I actually opted to use double on use. So I'm wearing a quantum device and a soul letting ruby from Theater of Pain. And then I'm also running the monetide totem legs. I've been running those a lot. I'll probably be running more like the Earth Ellie Lego now that it's kind of buffed with the earthquake. But for keys like this, we're going to play really safe. You can see I just popped it there. It does a lot of healing. But all these prides in here, except like, oh, I shouldn't say all these prides, like this pride and the last pride, and I guess the second to last pride would be pretty spooky. And the other pride just get killed by the plague board, which is also what's really nice about this route, is that there's 2 prides that we just basically don't have to kill. And the last pride you can easily skip. We just decided to kill it in our route because we think it's safer for making sure we push Stronema before we have 2 ads that are going off at the same time the last boss, but I'll talk about that later. Yeah, so this boss, I mean, this pride gets really, really spooky. You have to do a lot of healing on a 25 in order to get through this, but we get through it just fine. Thankfully, we have the Touch of Death from the Windwalker, and then we're going to go ahead and pull this boss. So this boss is a healer. There's nothing really special. Like I said, if you don't have a bunch of stopping utility in your group, it's a really good idea to take Earthgrab Totem. I'm just not, because we have 3 classes that are really good at controlling the ads. And this guy just tends to, oh yeah, my game always freezes on the first slime wave recently, and I haven't been able to figure out what add-on is doing that. Luckily here, it didn't decide to pick me, so I didn't die for it. I still have to figure out what add-on is doing that though. Okay, just gonna do the Beckon Slime. Normally the first one that comes, I think we either para or single root it, and then the ones that are coming in from afar, yeah, so he's gonna go ahead and paralyze it. The ones that come in from afar, he's going to put together. You can see he typing them over there, and he mass rooted them so they're all safe. If they weren't all together, we would use things like Ring of Frost, Sigil of Fear, Cap Totem, My Slow Totem, all those good kinds of things. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and skip a little bit past this so we can get into the trash, because this boss fight's pretty simple. If you have a disease spell, you want to make sure you're dispelling someone every once in a while. I think our Windwalker probably just didn't want to use his level to dispel. I was about to say, I think he did the mage. Maybe he did. Maybe he altered it. Alright, so after that, so what happened here is that we normally have para up for this slime, right? So we normally just para this slime and we don't mess with it until we get down this plague board over here. But what happened was, because we used para towards the end of the boss fight, it wasn't up. So I ended up having this slime, having to bring it in, and this pull got a little bit spookier than usual, but usually it's a good idea to just like CC those first 2, just pull the plague board and the plague binder that's there, because the plague binder is not really scary, and if you only have the plague binder and the plague board, you can use all of your kicks on the plague binder. But yeah, because we didn't have paralyze up and we didn't realize until we'd already pulled, this got a little bit scarier than usual. It ends up being fine though, and we don't have any deaths for it. Again, this key timer is pretty dang free. This is definitely not a clean key. Like this, I'm gonna die to something stupid, our tank is gonna die to something stupid, and all it's gonna happen, but because it's Plaguefall, it's going to be fine, and we'll have plenty of time on the timer to play the key the way we want it to. Right, so again, we're just gonna be DPSing down this plague board, and then we'll be pulling that into these 3 slimes, and I think we CC the plague binder up here and pull into this pull, if I remember correctly. Yeah, we CC the plague binder and then we pull in the congealed slime. And if you're a Necrolord, oh, I guess you don't have to fleshcraft these anymore to get the buff, but yeah, we also don't have a Necrolord in our group for this key, so we're not getting like the benefits of like from all the slimes we're killing right now. But Necrolord is definitely not necessary for this key at all. So I wouldn't stress about making sure that like those mobs that give you buffs are in your route or something if you're worried about timing this key. As long as like the most important thing is that you're making sure that the route is taking advantage of like all the plague borers and like back pulling with the plague borers later on. So we're just gonna kill this plague binder. I'm going ahead because I want to get this dot off of me. Sometimes we usually use the belt in business, but I'm actually running the cardboard assassin on my belt now, just because a lot of the mobs in here are really dangerous. Not only because it's 25, but because the trash in here just hurts really, really hard. It's only doable because usually they don't live that long. Yeah, so we're gonna pull all of these, and then we're gonna go up and we're gonna get the plague borers that are getting spawned from the mini boss that pat back and forth. Normally it's a good idea for like your boomkin or your mage to be pulling them. You just want to make sure they're being careful because the plague borers do that like cast, the like poison cast. It's like slows you and it does a lot of damage on this key level. So this part gets really tricky with the tank having to go pull mobs and then having the range have to go back and tag the plague boars. Oh yeah, also you saw I didn't dodge that. I went to goblin jump and there's like a wall here. But that's what Ankh is for. We're just making sure we're dodging that plague boar, and we've got to make sure that we take the time to soak these oozes. I think our tank has forgotten, and we're trying to DPS them down. Our Windwalker is so scared to jump on them that he'd rather Fist of Fury them. Again, like there's no damage to do here, so there's nothing wrong with spending your DPS CDs there, because there's just absolutely nothing that you have to spend your DPS CDs on in this entire area. Your DPS are actually just AFK for like the next 8 minutes after you kill the first boss. And just making sure that they're doing everything they can to help keep the tank alive and coordinate pulling everything together. Alright, so I have a Pride here. So with this Pride, we're going to kill Plague Boars. Oftentimes we pull this Pride onto a tentacle. I can't remember if we do it in this key or not. It looks like, yeah, he stops short. We're definitely playing... Okay, no, he does go and pull the tentacle. We're going to pull this tentacle, and then we're going to pull this tentacle over here. I wasn't sure how safe we were playing this key or not. Yeah, this can get a little bit awkward just because there's so much movement with the plague boars and the lines and stuff like that, but it dies so quickly that it doesn't matter. So next we're gonna kill this next slime, this next tentacle. I'm gonna grab these plague boars. I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit because this is gonna get really repetitive, but I want you to see what mobs we're pulling. So yeah, we go back and we pull this jagged spine breaker and the slime claws that were back over here. I think this is the one that was padding through the water. Yeah, this was a spine breaker that's like padding through the water if you skip on the left hand side when you go up this way. I think our tank does die somewhere in here if I remember correctly. Yeah, okay, well our tank died, we got him up, and then now our Windwalker is dead. And we're gonna wait to drop combat to get him up. That's why I have Earth Ellie out, because our tank died. Again, like all these mobs are really, really, really scary for your tank. We can only pull this way because they're not gonna live that long, but again, very scary. It's hard to like put them in the plague boars and make sure that your tank isn't gonna die as well. These oozes, super spooky. Okay, they're actually not that bad once I put up my my wall. So I'm gonna go ahead and res him. Okay, so what we do next is we're gonna go around this hill. And what we want to do is we actually want to skip past this mini boss, so the plague boars are gonna keep spawning, so we can use that to kill the trash that's in front of what's its face. So I kind of fell right there. So that's what you're not supposed to do. So you see I have slow fall on me. And I'm going to jump an invis pod. The better thing to do is to stay mounted, like you're going to see like our Windwalker and Mage do. Stay mounted once you get in the air and then hit your invis pod. I wouldn't suggest doing what I do because it's a little bit harder to do with Ghost Web because you're not going to get as much air. The reason we're just chilling here is because we couldn't remember if the plague boars had stealth detection or not. They definitely don't. We just we're very paranoid because it's like our first 25, so we're taking things super safe. So again, this area is also really scary because our tank's gonna go up and pull. We used to have our mage pull the plague boars a lot, but we decided that having the boom king go do it because they could just like hop in bear form, stuff that was a lot safer. But again, I'm pretty sure we have deaths here. It's so easy for things to go wrong. It's really hard to do threat as well when you don't have a rogue. Like doing this area is a lot easier when you just have a rogue go up and hit those things and they automatically get tricks to your tank. It's a lot trickier though when we're having our range have to pull it on top of our tank and we're trying to pull these mobs and dodge the boss and stuff like that. Again, here's a red puddle. If you aren't using the plague boars, you could use this red puddle. It gives you like a 25% haste increase in someone's CDs, but it does do a lot of damage, so I'd only suggest using it like like your mage has combust or something like that, where they're getting really good benefit from you taking the time to heal through them. Yeah, it's really good. You just try and kick in these plague binders. And yeah, the spine breakers, they live quite a long time. You usually need multiple plague boars in order to kill them. Do you want up, Spooky? Sorry, my cat wants up. Come on. So yeah, then we just went and pulled the next set of mobs. Sorry if the purring is really loud. Yeah, it's really important that you get the plague binder cast that does the root. I'm actually surprised I didn't die right there, but our boomkin did die. It's really important that you try and get the root or that you're dispelling it because it's easy, like if your tank gets targeted with that, then it's really easy for them to get stuck inside the gripping infection. It's really easy for them to get stuck inside of the green swirlies on the ground and die that way. Okay, so next thing we want to do is we want to kill the mini boss, but we want to make sure that we kill him in a way that the next set of plague boars is going to spawn and that he's going to die. We're going to have time for the pride to spawn and for the plague boars still to be up to kill them. So what usually happens is you have both them on there and you have it kill him, and then you just don't DPS. You just let those tick on him and you'll get another set as long as you don't DPS him. But what happened there is we actually got him hit by one, and we want to make sure he doesn't get hit by both because then we won't get the next set. So our Boomkin's going to taunt away one of them. Yeah, he's going to taunt again. This is like, is that not what happens? That is what happens, because he already had one bomb go on him. So now he's going to get another bomb, because 2 bombs is enough to kill him with just like a tiny bit of DPS. You just want to make sure that like your DPS are just like sitting there again doing nothing this whole time. DPS hate this dungeon because they don't get to do what they want to do. And then we have these 2 plague boars up in time for the pride spawning, and then we're going to kill the pride with that. Another thing you can do that other groups do, and it's really advanced if you want to do it, is you can drag the mini boss down with the plague boars, kill him, spawn the pride, and then bring the boss over and kill the pride and the boss with the plague boars. It doesn't fully kill the boss, but it does at least like phase him. It does do a lot of damage. It's really efficient for time if you ever wanted to try and do that. We saw it and we're like, oh, this is a really good idea, but we didn't want to throw our 25 key trying it for the first time. So next we're gonna do boss. So on pole, we have our our mage combust, and then our boomkin presses convoke and CA, and then our windwalker is holding on to all of his CDs, and then he's going to use that on the first plague bomb, and then on the second plague bomb our mage is going to have his combust back. It's important in this dungeon, even though it's like really easy, to remember to plan your CDs for Dr. Ickis and for Stratoma so that you have CDs like everywhere, so no phase is lasting too long. I have actually lost like high Plaguefall keys because my DPS just didn't communicate who was saving what CDs for these plague bombs. Feels like it's a really, really sad way to lose this key. So yeah, just make sure that your DPS are planning how they want to save their CDs. As far as the congealed slimes go, whenever they spawn, we make sure that we are always CCing them. You can pair them, you can root them. There's also an engineering item you can use that stuns them. I don't know the name of it off the top of my head. I'll put it down in the comment section. If you use it, it's really good at like CCs them for a full minute, but if it backfires, it stuns you for like 5 seconds, which is why we don't really use it that often anymore. But it is like really nice. It's also good, I think, like on the first boss for CCing. So we get this next one. So we always start out rooting it, and then when we leave, because we know there's not gonna be any dots on it, that's when we put something like a pair on it. We always want to start off with a root. That way if there's like any incidental hot like dots or hots or anything like that, you can just like reroute it. But if you do something like a pair or something, it's just gonna get broken. So you always start with root, and then when you're going to the next platform, you put the para on the old one, or the blind, or whatever like CC you have that would normally break on damages. So you can have root back for the other one. Yeah, we're just gonna finish this boss. I'm gonna skip ahead a tiny bit again. So this boss is actually a little bit spooky for your tank, but I think I remember him saying like he wanted to like save all of his CDs for the later packs, which is why at the end you saw his health kind of fluctuating there a lot. And of course you want to make sure that you're dispelling your tank is every time he gets a debuff on that boss. Sorry, my spooky is just going ham. She's on my desk, if you can hear that. Yeah, this next pull, we just pull this 2-pack here to this the tentacle and the slime. She's gonna knock the cup off the desk. And we're just killing those, and then we're gonna go ahead and pull this mini pack. You just want to make sure on these tentacles that you're capping whenever they are targeting someone, like the crushing on them, and then of course trying to interrupt the defender of many eyes so that you can do DPS, because it makes like an anti-AoE zone. But yeah, whenever we do have to kill any of these mobs with our hands, they have a lot of health and they live a long time. So this next pull, I'm always making sure I'm kicking the creepy crawlies on the decaying flesh giant. This pull is a lot of damage. Like these snipers do so much damage, and the defender does a moderate amount of damage, but the sniper definitely does a lot of damage. So if you go in this pull without CDs, it can get a little bit spooky. Luckily, I usually always pop like Ascendance here because it's going to be up in time for the Pride that comes after. Yeah, I can see our tank's health is spiking quite a bit. I'm going to skip ahead again. So I just got a drink right there. And then now I'm going to go forward and catch up with my team. So we usually always cage this ambusher, and we do this ambusher usually after this boss. And the reason we do it after the boss is because we want good pride timing, because if you kill it before, you're gonna get pride on the next pull no matter what. But we want to make sure it's on the last death. Otherwise, we often end up going into pride with like an ambusher up or a defender up or something like that, and all those things do a lot of damage. And so it's a lot safer to just save this ambusher until after the last boss, so that the next pull, when the pride spawns there, is not nearly as scary. These pulls are like, I think they're deceivingly scary. I don't know, I think they do quite a bit of damage. Just a bunch of like random targeted damage that's hard to heal through sometimes. You want to make sure that you're trying to like cap totem, the stealth things. If you're running Earth Grab totem like from the first boss, then you can also just like put that down on them if you time it. Like I think if you do it like 2 seconds after they spawn, as long as you don't do it like right when they spawn, it'll last long enough. And that'll make it so that they don't jump, as long as nobody does damage to them to break them. You can just like DB them. There's so many ways that you can stop those stealth things. You just want to make sure that you're paying attention to where they're spawning, because if they do go off, they're of course going to one-shot someone. Let's get forward a tiny bit again. This is basically same thing as before. Ambusher does a lot of damage. You never kick the enveloping weapon cast. The Ambusher, when he's doing the cast, is doing like no damage and it doesn't matter. But when he's not casting, he's doing the jump around thing, it's a lot of damage. So it's always beneficial to just let him channel and ignore it. So you just never kick that. Let's skip ahead again. Again, we're pretty low here. This is really spooky, and then we're gonna be going into a pride. The only thing that's kind of spooky about leaving this ambusher up is like during the boss, if the guys like spawn on him, it could be really bad. So what we normally do is like we'll end up like typhooning and ring a piecing this like mob back, so that we don't have to like risk about AoE hitting that mob and bringing it into combat with us during the boss. Now we're gonna finish off these stealthlings, and then we have another pride. So because I'm running, I mentioned this before, but I'm running IQD and Soul Letting Ruby, I'm probably going to wait until it's about 8 stacks. I'm going to already pop my IQD actually. I'm going to pop IQD, which is going to give me a bunch of stats, and then I want to use Soul Letting Ruby second because I'll get more crit the lower health the pride is. As if I remember correctly, this one gets pretty spooky. I'm trying to hold on to my CDs as long as possible just because it starts ticking so hard towards the end. It's already at like 17 stacks. It's definitely going to be 20 for a little while towards the end here. And I end up having a link because I got a little bit too greedy on waiting to pop my Chain Harvest into my Ascend. I've talked about this in my other videos, but I usually, like when I need like the most HPS, I always Chain Harvest into Ascend, because if you ascend like the very next global, like right at the end of your Chain Harvest, then it'll snapshot the Chain Harvest healing into your Ascendant. So it's basically like getting a whole free cast inside of your Ascendants, because there's like travel time on the spell. You can do it as well with like healing, like when you do like Prim Wave, Healing Wave duplication, do the same thing. Okay, so this boss is pretty spooky, number 1 for your tank, and number 2 with you getting the debuff. So the Druid is pretty much always safe. They have a lot of like tanky endurance stuff. And then the Windwalker is mostly safe as long as he has like Diffuse. I'm not sure Fort Brew is always enough to keep him alive, but Diffuse is really good. Karma is mostly enough. And then for myself, I'm going to, since I don't have Wall, the first thing I'll probably do is use my Earth Ellie because I'm running the Endurance Conduit in here. I'm running Draven. And the other thing I tell my team on a boss fight this high is because I'm running the Hold Your Ground trait, which means if I don't move, I get 10% increased stamina. If I get targeted with the circle and I don't have a lot, I'll tell them move away from me so I can keep my 10% increased stamina, and they'll just move off of me so that I don't have to lose my buff and move out. Yeah, so you see, I'm going to be moving still. I put down my Earth Ellie. I moved last second because of the volcanic spawning, but I still got to keep my Hold My Ground buff for when I got the initial hit. But I did make sure to start sit there at the end because I was really scared of a volcanic spawning on me. So I tried to wait as long as possible to do that. And then the next one that happens, if I get another one, I will have my Wall. And also, if you are running Earth Grab and you have Ghost Swift here, of course, getting into Ghost Swift when you get targeted by it to make sure that you get your DR from that is really good. But I think most of the time, unless you're running a comp like this, you will end up running Earth Grab in this dungeon just because it is so good for like the first boss, the 2 Plague Belchers, and like the Stealthlings and a bunch of other random stuff. I think both are equally good, and you can definitely live both ways. If you're a Necrolord, you can just Fleshcraft. That kind of owns. Yeah, so we're gonna kill this boss, and then we're gonna go down to the final boss. So it's really common, and what we've done in all of our other keys, like the first time we did a 24, we did not kill the final pride. So there's like 2 slimes on the right that you can pull in. Oh yeah, we have to go back and kill the ambusher. Sorry, I forgot about that. So we're going back, we're killing the ambusher, and I'm just drinking right now. But on our 24, we didn't kill the final pride. We waited until after the boss. We went and killed the 2 final slimes. You'll see some groups like CC the slime so they can kill it right after Shadam or whatever. Sorry, my cat. Either way, it's up to you guys. We just ended up deciding it was the better thing to do because we wanted to make sure that we weren't going to have 2 of the big adds up during P1. So we wanted the pride to be able to carry us through that, because if you have 2 adds up during P1 and they both do like their like circle frontal soak thing, you're just immediately dead because your tank can't soak both of them. And also we just didn't want to have 2 adds spawn because then our tank has to tank both, although we did end up having 2 adds spawn and you did have to tank both of them even though we did kill pride. It also means that you end up using all of your healing CDs on the pride if you do it that way. So depending on how hard it is for you to heal, this could be like a bad thing. For me, I think it's fine because I just have all my healing CDs come up during phase 3, which is mostly the scariest. I think I didn't have things like, I didn't have like Spirit Link and stuff come up though, so it's something to definitely think about. Is it does, like it makes P1 go faster, make sure you only get 1 infectious rain instead of 2, but it might make it harder for you to heal the encounter overall. But most groups do it a different way. I think definitely Holy Paladin groups never kill it because I just have Hollow to carry them through the first phase. But as a shaman, I think both ways are equally good. I think on lower keys though, skipping the pride is better. So yeah, right now we are killing the 2 slimes and the 2 front guys, and right now you can see our Boomkin. There's a bunch of bursting stacks. He's off on his own, so he's stealthed around and he's soloing 5 of the little guys, and then he's gonna pull and start the other side. And by doing that, it basically just lets us do 2 things at once because I don't have to heal everyone through bursting. He can live a 5 stack of bursting by himself, and he can get the other 5 guys that are over here low enough. Because like, if we pull them all at the same time, they're all gonna die at the same time. We're gonna get a big 10 stack of bursting, which is not what we want. Right here, I think I'm trying to drop combat so I can drink because I'm gonna have to heal like 2 5 stacks of bursting into a pride. So I definitely want to make sure I have enough mana before that happens. So yeah, the ones over here in the corner, our Boomkin already went off and killed. You can also, like, your mage or hunter can go do this by themselves too, although I don't think I've really seen hunters do it that much. Mostly just mages and Boomkins. And then when these come in, these are already halfway dead, so it's really nice for bursting. They can alternatively just go and kill those by themselves. They don't have to drag them in. It just so happened that he hadn't killed them yet, and we were already pretty much finished with that pack, so we started dragging them back towards us. Yeah, these guys, you just want to make sure that your tank is kiting. These, the devoted as much as possible. Those things kind of hurt. You don't really need to worry about that much Ichor Battleflesh. You can kick him, like, there's no reason not to kick him, but there's no reason also to, like, stress about kicking him. He doesn't actually do that much damage. We usually always make sure that we're kicking him, though, because we don't want our tank to die or lose any of his cheats. Cheats on this boss are very, very precious. Yeah, I'm gonna skip ahead a tiny bit again. This part, again, is a little boring. We're just gonna be single targeting down Ichor. Getting ready for this pride to spawn. The pride spawn, and again, I'm going to use absolutely everything on it. I'm going to use both my trinkets and every single healing CD that I have because it's at 25, and this thing does a lot of damage. And that's going to make, it's going to make the boss a little bit scary. Like, phase 1, I'll have pride to carry me. Phase 2, I should have Chain Harvest come back up. And then phase 3, by the second Infectious Rain, I should have all my healing CDs come up. Again, like, this wasn't a 25, though, that probably would be the case. You'd probably just be full on committing yourself to not having any CDs unless you commit something really early on in the pride, which is kind of pointless in my opinion. I'm going to Chain Harvest into Ascend here to top us. And then the big cloud burst coming out. And yeah, and before I did the Chain Harvest, I hit my Swirling Ruby. And that thing's about to fade. I definitely think I pressed the Swirling Ruby a little bit too early. Yeah, our Mage Cot's here. Very, very spooky pride. The other thing is like all of my DPS are holding on their CDs for the most part too. Our mage did combust, and he should get a combust, I'm pretty sure, during this phase. I think the way we do it is we have combust and Windwalker CDs during phase 1, and then our Boomkin is going to CA Convoke to carry the damage in phase 2. I can't remember if we lust there. We usually, on our lower keys, we did lust the second phase. Pretty sure that's what we do here. Also, whenever we get to this boss, or to these phases, we make sure we're like planning out who's getting the dispel. So on the first Infectious Rain, I always pop Wall, and the monk dispels himself. And then on the next Infectious Rain we get, I don't have Wall, so he's gonna dispel me, and then he's gonna use his CDs like Fort Brew, Karma, I think Diffuse works on it and stuff like that. And then it'll go the other way again, I'll pop Wall, and then after that he'll dispel me again. So we're like rotating our CDs. This is something nice you can do if you do have a disease dispel. I wouldn't suggest, a lot of people are always like, oh, I'm always gonna dispel blank person. I think it's better to be rotating who you're dispelling depending on who has defensives up. So yeah, we end up lost in the second phase with our Boomkin CA Convoke to make sure that we get through this phase without that many ads coming up. And right now we were trying to DPS down the ads as much as possible so that before our Boomkin Convoked, that way all of the damage went into the boss. But yeah, this is the one where I said I have Chain Harvest back up. He dispels me at 3 stacks, so I will get 1 more stack, but I mostly am getting to just like ignore myself. I still have to heal myself a tiny bit. The mage is pretty much always alter timing every single one. And this is also pretty scary for your tank because these malignant spawns do a lot of damage. Yeah, we're in the home stretch, we're almost there. This boss can be really spooky. And you also want to be making sure that when you're kiting around during this phase that you're being really careful about not sitting close to these devoted. You see this one, I'm actually surprised it didn't melee me because I put the high threat thing on there, but it's really easy for you to get threat when you're trying to heal your tank through the malignant spawn. So he needs quite a bit of healing. It's hard for him to get threat on everything. Yeah, so I do have Healing Tide come up here. And then after that, I think I'm probably going to press Monetize as soon as it's up just to like catch us up before the next one goes out because this phase gets really hectic with the amount of movement you get. I'm mostly scared for my tank right now. I remember my tank was really, oh god, the volcanic gob jump, thank goodness. It's really scary for your tank by now because they've usually lost a lot of their cheats and stuff to the malignant spawns. I also popped Earth Alley there for the extra health, and I'm going to ascend this one. And thankfully the boss is almost dead. I guess we actually didn't time it that much time. We only had 20 seconds. I remember we were going down. We also have like a contingency, like we don't always say like, oh, we're gonna kill the Pride. It's just like it's like a safety play if we have time to kill the Pride. So we could have not killed the Pride. That maybe would have meant getting an extra Infectious Rain. During the first phase I still died. That dot hurts. But it's definitely like, it's healable and I would have had all my CDs. So it would definitely have been healable. It's just in our minds it's safer if we kill the Pride and make sure that our tank is not going to have to be tanking a bunch of malignant spawns more than healing through the range is what it's really about. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys learned something from this video. If you have any questions, you can leave them below in the comments on the stream, or you can stop by my stream. I'm always, or the comments of the YouTube video, or you can stop by my stream. Thank you all for watching.